Make sure I'm recording, that's important. Okay, back in the full screen. Okay, so officially everyone, thank you so much and welcome to the Natural Labor Preparation webinar with me, Corinne Brown. It is so nice to meet you and chat with you guys beforehand. And like I said, thanks a lot for being here with me live. As you saw in the emails, I am going to give you access to the Labor Room Survival Guide, which is my ebook that I've created for those special mamas who decide to show up live with me. So I'm going to give you access to that a little bit later on. So stay tuned for that. This webinar, you guys, is something that I created for you. And by the sounds of kind of our brief introductions there, it sounded like most of you are going to fit into one of these categories, right? Wanting to have a natural birth in a hospital, wanting to have a home birth, a birth center birth, or having a VBAC in any one of those birth locations. And so for any one of those kind of births, you want things to go extra smoothly and efficiently, right? You want things to be going in your favor because otherwise your birth plan that you're hoping for won't actually pan out. So that's why we're here today talking about how to labor naturally without any unnecessary fear, pain, or interventions. So basically how to help your birth plan to actually be executed successfully. And so I'm also hopefully learning that not only you'll be able to, or teaching you that not only you'll be able to successfully execute a natural birth, but that you might even actually enjoy the process. But the only way that you can enjoy labor, which as you have probably heard is a lot of hard work, is if you are empowered. And so I just want to quickly define the word empowerment because we're going to be talking about it a lot tonight. Empowerment is the process of becoming stronger and more confident or being given the authority and the power to do something. So that's what we are doing here tonight. I'm giving you the confidence and the authority and the education that you need in order to be able to have this really nice, smooth, and efficient, unmedicated birth. So I want to open the webinar with a quote by Ina May Gaskin. And if you don't know who Ina May is, she is the mother of modern midwifery. You definitely need to write her name down and get your hands on anything that she's written. And I want to open the webinar with this quote. I just met her for the second time at the end of May, so last month. And it was wonderful. And so that's I could do a whole other webinar on my meeting with her. But basically, she's who empowers me. And she's who has taught me a lot of what I know to teach you here tonight. But this quote really frames the rest of this webinar because it's so important to acknowledge right up front that birth is so incredibly important for your emotions, your mind, your body, and your spirit for the rest of your life. And that is, people think that your birth experience just kind of wraps up once you have the baby, but that's not true. There's a lot of processing that goes on afterwards, as we'll talk about. But yeah, it definitely impacts you for a very, very long time. So are you feeling ready? Are you feeling, like you can do this? You're feeling confident? I hope that you're feeling at least somewhat confident, but the fact that you're here shows me that maybe there's a little bit of room still to learn a little bit more. Maybe in the back of your mind, there's a little bit of doubt or fear or a lack of confidence. And unfortunately, I wish it wasn't true, but unfortunately, that is very common these days because of just society, people, media definitely does not shine a very flattering light on labor and birth, and other women's negative birth experiences seem to be told, twice as many times as the positive ones. And so not even just since you got pregnant, but really throughout your whole entire life, all these outside influences have all been kind of molding and creating your current beliefs. And so that is really the root or the source of this doubt, fear, or lack of confidence. And so really tonight on the webinar, what I want to do is change those current beliefs, or modify them a little bit. And the way that we're going to do that is basically by understanding that there's two conversations going on in our head at all time. The first one is your head. So that's like actually your ego. It's like a piece of your personality that believes that you can't do it or wants you to believe that you can't do it. So that's the one who's bringing up all the fear, all the nervousness, all the what ifs, all the anxiety, reminding you about all the negative birth experiences that you've heard, right? So that's your head conversation. And then there's also your heart conversation. And your heart conversation is the one who says, this could be really cool. This could be an amazing experience. This is what I'm really feeling pulled to do. This is a natural thing. I can absolutely do this. And your heart is the reason that you're here on the webinar tonight, right? Because you have this goal. You want to have a birth like this. And so tonight I'm going to teach you how to do that, how to tune into your heart and tune out your head. And so the first way that we're going to tune in the heart is by saying this right along with me, that birth is a normal, natural, physiological process and that you have nothing to fear. Fear is, like I said, from the head, right? That's the head conversation. And that is probably one of the main things that stands in the way of a smooth and efficient natural birth for most women. If there was no fear, most births would probably be a lot more smooth and efficient and a positive experience. We're going to talk about fear a lot more tonight on the webinar. But first, I just want to kind of back up and introduce myself, just in case you don't know who I am or what it is that I do. So my name is Corinne Brown. I'm a labor doula with a background in naturopathic medicine. I am a mom of two. That's Rowan there next to me and Harvey there in the middle. And I am also the CEO and president of my online business, which is called Brown Roots Baby. And I'm a total birth junkie for life. So I want to kind of take a minute now and just tell you how I ended up, here on this webinar tonight, teaching you about natural labor preparation. When I first graduated from naturopathic college, I opened up a prenatal naturopathic clinic. So I was actually working out of a midwifery office. That was my little banner there on the door. And this was a dream come true. Basically, I was working with all these pregnant women. I was attending live births. I was working with the midwives. And so there was a ton of learning that happened in the years that I was working there. And this was also the time that I got to implement all the things that I was learning from naturopathic college, as well as from my doula training, into real life practice. And although I loved it, and this was exactly the population of women that I wanted to be working with, it was such demanding work, basically around the clock, being at births, going into the office at random hours to help women to induce their labor. Like it was very, very demanding. And I had a little baby at home myself. And basically 4 years in, my body just kind of pulled the e-brake on me and was like, nope, we're not going to do this. And when this picture was taken, I weighed less than 90 pounds. And shortly after, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which was pretty scary. I was losing weight every single day and had to really reassess my life. Like, what is going on here? Why is my health going so downhill? And I was really able to pinpoint it back to just all of my energy was going into my business. And so, at least for the time being, I decided to close my practice and focus on myself and my health. And so totally changed my diet, did a huge detox, started doing yoga, really, really focused a lot on self-care, and my health was restored within a couple of months. I really bounced back. And so then I was healthy again and wasn't working anymore. And I had the itch still to work with these women and to share the knowledge that I had. But this time I decided to do it a little bit more sustainably. So now I'm an online entrepreneur, a labor doula, and a natural birth expert. And the beauty about running an online business is that it's so much more sustainable. Like I said, I have a much broader reach, essentially worldwide, right? I can help more people and I can work when it's convenient for me. So the beauty of this is that I get to kind of tour around. I do live speaking gigs. I attend births. I host a video blog every week called Brown Roots Baby Talk that you'll be getting emailed access to. And I also teach this webinar on a regular basis to expectant moms. And actually, over 6,000 women, which is so crazy to say, over 6,000 women now have attended this webinar and learned how to give birth naturally from me. And hundreds of those women have gone on to work with me further to make sure that they have a really safe, non-scary, natural childbirth. And so now, obviously you can tell now I love my job, right? And I'm working in the field that I want to work in. I'm making a difference. I'm changing lives, and I am totally chasing my passion. And this birth junkie passion that I have has been really with me for life. Like I said, these pictures of me are when I'm 3 and 4 years old. And in every picture at that age, I'm playing house or I'm being mom. And in the top picture there, that's actually being mom to a cold milk baby, I called it. Just a bag of milk. Yeah, and I don't think it's overly unique for a little girl to be maternal at this age, but I know for a fact by the time I was 5 years old, I knew my mom's birth stories, my aunt's birth stories, and my grandmother's birth stories. And not because they overly talked about them, but because I would ask about them. And I would climb up in their laps and ask about their experiences. And maybe because I was such a little girl, but no one ever spoke about labor and birth in a scary way to me. So I grew up thinking that it was just how they described it: short, intense, and natural. But now I realize that all the women on my mom's side of the family had precipitous births, it's called. So under 6 hours, but theirs were all under 4 hours. So I came to know them as my 4 hour power birthers and assumed that I would get those same genes. But unfortunately, I definitely did not. So both of my births have actually been really challenging for me and quite imperfect. But the beauty of it is that my struggles are actually going to help you out, as you'll see on the webinar tonight. So I want to tell you at least Rowan's birth story there on the left. This was our first baby. This is me and my husband, Kyle. We wanted everything to be perfect, like, every pregnant woman does. And so I was a naturopath. I was a labor doula. I had a doula myself. I had a midwife. I had a home birth planned. And I had these 4 hour power birther genes. And so I basically did not do any labor preparation, even though that's what I was teaching in clinic. I was working with so many pregnant women to do this. I didn't do any myself because I thought my birth was going to be so fast and so easy. And so at 39 weeks, I went into labor, which was a week early. It was like perfect. It was right along my plan. And so I labored at home with my husband for 12 hours in the dark, super quiet and peaceful and romantic. It was glorious. And then about 12 hours in, I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little tired. So I laid my head down on the pillow and my water breaks. And we can see in the fluid that there is meconium. And meconium is basically a distress signal from the baby saying that something isn't quite right in there. Baby's not happy. And so we called the midwife. Midwife came and checked me. She said, Corinne, you're 5 centimeters dilated, which I was excited about. That was good. But she said, he's not head down. And I don't know what position he is in. And so because of that, we have the risk of the umbilical cord slipping out. And so you are actually no longer allowed to stand up, and we have to go to the hospital. And so they had to call an ambulance. They had to take me to the hospital in the ambulance. Worst 30 minutes of my life in the back of this ambulance ride, laboring. Like, oh my God, I so do not recommend this. Got to the hospital, had an ultrasound, and found out that he was frank breech. So he was bummed down. His feet were up by his ears. And that is the best position to try to deliver vaginally if you can. And so the OB that we were transferred to was this old dude. He was actually wearing cowboy boots at the time. He had been around the block. He had delivered breech vaginal babies. And so he said, if you want to have him vaginally, I will allow you to have a trial of labor. So we were super grateful. So we went right back to laboring in the hospital. We labored together at the hospital for another 12 hours. But there was no more progress in those 12 hours. So in the first 12 hours, I dilated 5 centimeters. In the second 12 hours, nada. And there was two different reasons for that. The first one was that I was afraid. I was afraid of being at the hospital. I was afraid from the ambulance ride. I was afraid from all this bad news. I was afraid of getting a C-section. And also, baby wasn't properly positioned, right? So that's another reason. I'm going to kind of describe those as we go through in a little bit more detail. But so after 24 hours of natural labor, our biggest fear came true, and we did end up with a C-section. And this is obviously a total 180 from the first moments I had envisioned after my birth. I had wanted this ideal, beautiful home birth, And in this picture, I can't even touch my baby because my hands are strapped down to the table. And in this picture, I'm not, elated and in love and giddy. I am heartbroken and sad, which is so sad to say now. And in my postpartum period, I dealt with some shockingly heavy emotions. Like there was actual grief. I grieved my natural birth. And most people are like, you still have a healthy baby. Like, why are you so sad? But you might understand that, right? Because you also really want to have a natural birth, and you can understand how if it slipped away from you, especially after so much hard work, that there would be a deep sense of loss there. I also had a lot of frustration because healing from a surprised major abdominal surgery is hard enough, let alone doing it with a newborn. Like you can't climb stairs, you can't pick up anything heavier than your baby, you can't drive for 6 to 8 weeks. Like it's a very frustrating recovery. You need a lot of help. And that was something I wasn't really expecting. I was also embarrassed that I had helped so many other women. I worked in a midwifery clinic. I was a naturopath. I was a labor doula, but then I couldn't give birth naturally myself. I thought that reflected on me, and I felt embarrassed. I also felt regret that I didn't do any labor preparation. That was like, I was kicking myself for a long time about that. And this is probably the worst emotion of all, because regret does not go away. Regretting your birth experience, it doesn't go away because your birth experience doesn't change, right? And so I definitely want to help you to avoid regret in your postpartum period. But I would say the most common emotion that I had in my postpartum was anxiety. And like really soon after having baby, I had anxiety. And anxiety is normal in the postpartum period, but I knew specifically that my anxiety was about my C-section because I knew it increased my risk of having a future C-section. And I knew I wanted to have more babies. And so I was already determined to have a VBAC for my next baby. And so I knew that I needed to make sure that I did amazing labor preparation the next time around. And so I dove into research like nobody's business. Like I wasn't just Googling things. I was like pulling out all my naturopathic obstetrics notes and all my obstetrics textbooks. And I was researching and looking at articles and consulting with peers and like just gathering as much information as I possibly could on how to make this my next labor go as smoothly and efficiently as possible. So originally, all this research that I compiled was selfish. It was for myself because I was so scared of having another C-section. But I was soon back to work and working with all these pregnant women. And I was like, oh, yeah, I should just be, using all these amazing tools that I've just gathered up on them. And so I started to share them with them. And eventually, every single pregnant patient was going through this really nice kind of 4-step natural labor preparation system that seemed to kind of work itself out. And everyone loved this system. They felt really ready and really excited going into their labor. And then after their labors, women were telling me stories of confidence and pride and strength. And their partners and their midwives were echoing these same feelings. They were totally lit up and empowered and excited by their births. And of course, I was super excited by them being so excited, right? Professionally, I felt very, very successful. I felt on top of the world. But that is when everything came crashing down health wise. That's when I got sick. And so that's when I decided to close my practice. And so for 2 years, I went from having all this amazing success and then closing my practice. And for 2 years, nobody used this program. Nobody benefited from this information. And it wasn't until I got pregnant with my second baby that I was like, okay, I'm ready to kind of dust this thing off and get it out into the world. And so I took that opportunity to create what is now my flagship program. So it's called Love Your Labor, 4 weeks to a magical birth. It's entirely online. And I'm going to describe the 4 steps of loving your labor more toward the end of the webinar. But basically, I want to tell you that tonight's webinar is basically module 1 of the webinar, of the program, module 1 of the program for free. So it's like a little bit of a taster or a teaser of the program. And then if you like what you hear and you're feeling inspired, then I can show you later on how you can go on to work with me further. So there I was, pregnant with my second baby, creating this program, simultaneously following along with this program. And I'm 100% sure that that is the only reason that I was able to have an all natural vaginal birth after cesarean or VBAC with Harvey. And the reason I say I'm 100% sure, like without a doubt, that it's because of the Love Your Labor program is because there was 3 separate times in my labor that a C-section was threatened. There was 3 separate times that my midwife and I were like, oh, damn. Like we looked at each other and we're like, this could be it. This could be the C-section. But each and every one of those times, we were able to overcome the obstacle that was in front of us using the tools from the Love Your Labor program. And so even though this labor was like 14 hours long after, another 6 hours of false labor a couple days before, and it was like all these obstacles, like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, because I was able to plow through those roadblocks and still make it to the end and have this entirely natural, beautiful, wonderful birth experience. Not only was that very healing for me from my first birth, but it proved the Love Your Labor program to me personally. And now I can, speak even more highly of it because I know, from personal experience that it absolutely works. And so now, just to kind of acknowledge and come full circle, I can now see that my first birth was totally a part of the master plan, right? And so now I don't feel embarrassed and regret my first birth. I appreciate it and love it so much because that is what opened up my entire world to teaching this very important information to the women who are next up at bat, like you guys. And I would be honored to be an example for you. If my story can inspire you that you can, overcome obstacles and have a natural birth yourself, then I want to give you every opportunity to do that. And so that's why I've created this webinar. And that's why we're going to kind of dive in right now. So this is what we're going to cover on the webinar today. We're going to talk about the 3 most common assumptions that most pregnant women, maybe even you, are making. We're going to talk about what labor preparation actually is and why you absolutely need it for your labor. We're going to talk about the birth goddess magic mindset that will help you labor so much easier in literally 1 second flat. We're going to talk about 3 more principles for training your mind to cope well with contractions, no matter how hard they get. We're going to talk about the 3 principles of training your body to have a smooth and efficient birth. And at the very end of the call, I'm going to give you the best kept secret in birth that I do not want to be a secret anymore. So I'm totally letting the cat out of the bag here tonight on the webinar. So stay tuned to the very end for that one. Just going to take a little sip of water before we get going. All right, we're going to dive in with assumption number 1. And that is that you and your doctor have the same ideal birth plan. And unfortunately, I really hate to burst your bubble, but this is not always necessarily true. And the reason for that is because when the doctors, this is the doctor's job. Delivering babies is the doctor's job. This is what they do day in and day out. And so after doing this job day in and day out for years and years and years, it loses a little bit of the magic, and it's less about your unique, beautiful, magical birth experience. And it's more about the way this doctor prefers to conduct a birth. And most doctors will kind of fall into a pattern of the way that they like to manage a birth. And most of the time it's not completely natural. And the reason for that is because it's less convenient, for sure, to manage a natural birth, but also they're just less experienced. They don't know how to support and allow a natural birth. They only know how to medically manage births. And so this is not necessarily true for every OB out there. And certainly it's true for fewer midwives because of their more holistic training. But the tricky thing is that you don't know if this is how your doctor is until you're in labor. And so, a lot of doctors will pay lip service to natural birth, and then you get into labor and they're like, oh, we need this, we need that intervention, and then it all goes downhill. And so that's why it's so incredibly important for you to go into your birth empowered, like we said, with this natural labor preparation. So what is Brown Roots natural labor preparation? Well, it's twofold. So the first thing is what we're doing here tonight on the webinar. That's where we train the body and mind to have a smooth and efficient birth. So if you think of your body as a machine, which it essentially is, a very, very intelligent machine, then we want your body to be like a well-oiled birthing machine. When you do go into labor, we want everything to be firing, aligned and firing on all cylinders, so that you don't get get snagged on any of these possible obstacles. Which brings me to part 2 of the labor preparation, which is where we identify and give you tools to overcome the obstacles. So 2 main obstacles that crop up in labor are fear, which we have talked about a little bit. We're going to talk about a little bit more, but also the labor funnel, right? So this is something that is an even bigger problem than fear, because most women don't even know that it's what it is, or that it's a problem, or that it exists. So if you are able to go through this second part of the labor preparation and remove these obstacles, such as the labor funnel, and there's other obstacles as well, but if you're able to go through and remove these obstacles, then you create this straight, clear path to a smooth and efficient birth. That's what makes it so smooth and efficient. You've kind of pre-paved. So this labor funnel, this is the reason why you need natural labor preparation, because it's surprisingly difficult to avoid the labor funnel if you're not actively preventing yourself from going into it. Ricki Lake, the Ricki Lake from our childhood, the Ricki Lake Show, she created a whole series of birth documentaries. This is the first one. It's called The Business of Being Born. It's one of my favorites. I think it might be available on Netflix. One of the women on my webinar told me that, but I have not double checked it. And basically, in this documentary, she talks about this labor funnel, or this sequence, or this pattern, or this trend that happens in hospital in a lot of detail. But basically, right now, I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version, just so that we can refer to the funnel in the webinar and you'll know what I'm talking about. So these are the reasons that a woman might fall into the labor funnel. So going more than 42 weeks, going more than 2 weeks overdue, or having a premature rupture of membranes. So that's when your water breaks before your body's actually ready to go into labor. Having an early labor that is really long and drawn out and not picking up into active labor that's really exhausting could end you up in the labor funnel, as well as going into labor and running to the hospital as soon as possible. That also increases your risk of going into the labor funnel. So the first kind of step into the labor funnel is Pitocin. Pitocin is a drug that looks a lot like our own natural labor hormone, oxytocin. It's given IV in labor to help induce labor or boost or augment labor contractions. And it looks a lot like oxytocin, but because it's the synthetic, concentrated, drug version of it, it's significantly stronger and more potent. And the contractions that it brings on are significantly stronger, longer, harder, closer together than your own natural contractions would be. And so the vast majority of women who get Pitocin do not labor naturally. Most women are asking for an epidural pretty quickly, just because there's no easing into it. It just hits you like a freight train. And so a common side effect of an epidural is that can then cause the labor to slow down again. So we've got the Pitocin picking things up, then we've got the epidural to relieve the pain, then we've got the epidural slowing that labor back down again. But now, because you are numb from the epidural and you can't feel anything, they're free to pump you up with more Pitocin. So now the contractions are back to being long, strong, and close together. So that's fine. You can't feel anything. Ideally, hopefully, your cervix is dilating and things are moving along. But a tricky kind of problem that can crop up is that even though you can't feel your contractions, baby is still being exposed to these long, strong, difficult contractions without much of a break in between. And so that can cause baby's heart rate to drop. And then baby's in distress, and now we're kind of in a medical emergency kind of situation. So if baby's heart rate drops when they're right there crowning, like you're 10 centimeters, you're pushing and baby's heart rate is dropping, Then you're looking at an intervention like maybe a vacuum forceps or episiotomy to get baby out. But if baby's not right there crowning, you're looking at a C-section, potentially even an emergency C-section. So of course, I'm not saying that every single woman who gets Pitocin is going to get an emergency C-section. It's not that tightly correlated. But what I am saying is that this sequence or this, medically managed funnel is so common, painfully common in hospitals. And so if you know about it, then you can know to prevent or avoid it as much as possible. Here are the statistics. So about 20% of women are getting induced with Pitocin. About 80% of women are getting an epidural, which I think really speaks to the lack of support and the lack of preparation that women are getting in and before labor. And then about 30% of women are getting a C-section. And that is like a national or maybe even North American average. But I know some hospitals go upwards of 80, some around 90%. So you really need to know what the intervention rates are, what the C-section rates are at the hospital that you're giving birth at if you're in a hospital. And really my mission, my life's work, is to lower all of these numbers. 80% of women are not giving birth naturally. 80% of women are giving birth inside the labor funnel with the epidural. And so I'm here to teach you how to tune into the labor process, because the problem is, or the thing is, you're not sick, right? There's no problem. Most pregnant women are healthier than they've ever been in their lives. You don't need intervention in labor unless there's a problem in your labor. And in that case, thank God we have these interventions. That's when they're medically, indicated and appreciated and necessary. But they're not necessary just because you're giving birth. Remember, this is a natural, normal physiological process. Your body knows what to do. And just to kind of prove that, this is the first time I met Ina Gatskin, and the C-section rates on the farm where she lived and worked for 40 years, delivering thousands of babies, their C-section rate is 1.7%. So that means 98.3% of the time, the body gets it right. When their body is being properly supported to give birth naturally. And so that should be a really positive, encouraging statistic for you. Okay, quick sip. Assumption number 2. Assumption number 2 is that you're a victim of your labor, that you're going to suffer through your contractions. And this is such a common assumption or mindset. And unfortunately, it's so disempowering. This is the most disempowering mindset you can bring into your labor with you. So we need to change these thought patterns here, right now, if you want to have a positive birth experience. So we're going to do a little bit of mindset work here. We're going to start by talking about how mindset is literally everything. I've learned this in my life, in my business, in my labors, as a mom. Mindset is everything. Every single thing on the planet could have a positive side or a negative side, right? It's the pros and the cons. And so you want your birth to be framed in a positive way because, aside from being your lifelong connection with your baby, this is a lifelong memory that you will hold for the rest of your life. And so that's why you must in your labor have this birth goddess magic mindset. This is a positive mindset hack that I've been teaching to women since 2010 or 2011. Because here's the thing. No matter why you want to give birth naturally, and there's a few different reasons that women will kind of choose this path, it's important to realize that you're doing this voluntarily, right? No one's forcing you to give birth naturally. This is a conscious birth choice that you're making. And so if you're doing it voluntarily, you can't be a victim. You're not suffering. This is a choice that you're making. You're going into it fully knowing that there will be moments that will be difficult, but you're not suffering. Okay? So now that you understand that, now you have all the control. Now you can welcome these contractions with love and gratitude. This is the birth goddess magic mindset, laboring with love and gratitude, because that allows you to totally flip the script. It allows you to totally have control over the situation if you're looking at the positive side of it. So this really is the key to, having a positive birth experience, but it's also the key to life overall, like choosing this mindset in life, finding that bright side, finding that silver lining. And this is something that you can practice now, like throughout your day-to-day life, especially if you're in a situation that you're not super in love with. Then if you practice you looking at it with love and gratitude, it'll be that much easier to flip into this headspace when you're in labor. One of my doula patients who really got this birth goddess magic mindset is Andrea. So I want to tell you Andrea's story. When I first got a call from Andrea, she was about 4 minutes pregnant. Like, I'm not exaggerating. She literally had just peed on a stick and called me and was like, "Hi, my name's Andrea. I'm pregnant and I just found out and I need a doula and I need a naturopath because I am terrified." And the reason that she was terrified, the main reason, is that she was terrified of contractions. She has had a lifelong belief that she has a low pain tolerance. And yet, on the other hand, she was a very healthy person. She ate well and slept well and drank her water and took her supplements and exercised and did all the things that healthy people do. And so it was very important to her to have a birth that didn't have medications and interventions. But yet she was very, very anxious about these contractions and this pain. And so throughout her labor, we did a lot of mindset work. We did some serious coaching about this birth goddess magic mindset and reminding her that this is a conscious birth choice that she's making, that she really truly wants to have a natural birth. She wouldn't have it the other way. And so it's about accepting and getting your mind around these contractions. And so I wasn't sure how much progress we'd made, really, because she still seemed anxious and she still seemed worried. But then her husband called me and said, "Okay, we're in labor. Come on and meet us at the hospital." And when I got there, I almost fell over. Like, I literally grabbed the door frame and was like, "Oh my God," because she morphed from this tightly wound little ball of anxious nerves into this loose, strong, beautiful, radiant birth goddess. It was outstanding. Every single contraction, it would come, she would stand up, she would cope, she would hardly make a sound. She would just do her little ritual thing and then blow it away. And then as soon as it was over, she would sit down and have some water and regroup for the next one. And she just absolutely owned it. She was like a soldier. And afterwards, I was like, "Dude, you absolutely owned that." Like, I was so proud of her. And what she responded to me kind of stuck with me. She goes, "You know what? I was happy to do it." And I think that really, shined through in her birth experience. She had like a 6-hour labor. She had an 8-pound baby. She had no interventions, no stitches, no tears, no nothing. Like, she literally had the perfect birth. And this picture was taken 10 minutes after her birth. Like, she gave birth to her baby, and then her whole family came rushing in. Everyone was passing the baby around, taking pictures, and someone took this picture. And look at how radiant and happy and proud and excited she looks in this picture. And that really speaks to the mindset that she had in her labor in coping with her contractions. So that's why I'm going to go through even more labor training for your mind, because it's so important. Your mindset is going to make or break your labor experience. You do have a lot more control over the way contractions feel than you think you do, just by the way that you cope with them. It's not that contractions are easy and so that's why you'll cope well. No, you'll cope well because you'll have tools that will help you cope well. Contractions are going to be the most difficult thing you ever do, but you can do it because there are tools like this out there. So the tools that I have for you are run the marathon, ride the wave, and resist nothing. So the first one is to run the marathon. I love this picture. And the reason I call it this is because I often liken labor to a marathon, because we know before we go into either one of these events that it's going to be a long, difficult, physical endurance event that's going to last for hours. We know that about a marathon and labor. And so that's why it's important to, long beforehand, prepare yourself with this marathon mentality, getting into this long game, right? Knowing it's going to be hours, knowing it's going to be a lot of work, and not getting shaken or affected by the numbers. So a marathon runner might be affected by the number of hours they've been running or how many kilometers they've run. But a woman in labor might be affected by the number of hours she's been in labor or the number of centimeters dilated she is. And we must totally ignore those numbers for two different reasons. The first reason is that labor is not linear. And what I mean by that is that if you are in labor for 12 hours and then you get checked and you're 4 centimeters dilated, it's not going to take you another 12 hours to get another 4 centimeters dilated, right? It's not like that. Physiologically, we know anything is possible. We know my mom's side of the family dilated from 0 to 10 centimeters in 4 hours, right? So in terms of what the body is capable of, just about anything. The cervix can dilate on a dime. And so that's when number 2 comes in. But so when you get checked and you hear your dilation, you need to totally ignore that number, because the reason number 2 is that stress hormones slow or stop your labor hormone production. This is one of the reasons that my cervix did not dilate past 5 centimeters, because I was fearful. So stress or fear or anxiety or worry or any of these things, all of these emotions are going to release the exact same stress hormones in your body, cortisol and adrenaline. Cortisol and adrenaline are going to compete in your body with oxytocin. The two do not coexist together. Oxytocin is Okay, so here's why. Oxytocin and cortisol don't coexist, and here's why. Think about a cave woman, okay? Cave woman is in labor, and all of a sudden, a saber-toothed tiger jumps into her cave and is about to eat her. So her body understands that this is not a good time to continue laboring, because if she pushes that baby out, saber-toothed tiger is going to eat them both. So instead, her body floods the system with adrenaline and cortisol in order to either fight or flight, either fight the saber-tooth tiger or get the heck out of Dodge. So that is going to grind her labor to a halt and make sure that she can now get away from this saber-tooth tiger. Your body isn't so much different than a cave woman. It still interprets those stress hormones or those stressful emotions as stress, as a saber-tooth tiger. And so it's going to release those stress hormones. So now that you know that, you know stress and anxiety and fear and worry and all those things slow your smooth and efficient birth. Now you must, as soon as you hear your progress, boom, right back to the marathon mentality. Ignore those numbers completely, right back to business. Get your eye on that prize, one contraction at a time. You can do this, but you take one at a time. Second tip I have for you is to ride the wave. So if you think about a wave like a bell curve, right? You know, you've got the incline, you've got the peak, and you've got the decline. So just like that, that's how a contraction goes. So you start the contraction and it's pretty easy. It just feels like a little twinge and you're like, okay, here it comes. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's picking up. It's not too bad yet. Okay, now it's, oh no, now it's getting really strong. Whew, okay, now it's getting really strong. Okay, now it's really difficult and you're going over the peak. That's where the hard stuff is. That's the toughest stuff, where you've got to lean hard on your support person, dig deep into your coping techniques. And then just like a wave, right? That tension builds, and then it breaks. Oh, what a relief. And then you go down the other side of that wave, right? And the pain just gets easier and easier and easier and easier until, just like a wave kind of washing on the shore, it just fades away. So you think of that bell curve and you've got the incline, the peak, and the decline, right? If you think every contraction is about a minute long and it's divided into 3 chunks, that means each chunk is only 20 seconds. And that means that the peak of the contraction, which is the really, really, really tough stuff that you really got to work hard to deal with, is only 20 seconds long. And I know for a fact that if you put your mind to it, you can do anything for 20 seconds without a doubt in my mind. So that is super helpful to get your mind around contractions before you go into labor, to kind of ease that fear a little bit about them, but also during your labor, when a contraction comes, like, okay, this isn't too bad, but I'm on the way up. And then when you're up there, you're like, okay, I'm in the peak, but it's not so bad and I can manage. And then you're on the decline and you can let it go, right? So that's the beauty of riding that wave. And if you fall off the wave and you don't have a very good contraction, boom, do not get stressed, do not get defeated, do not get pissed, do not get worried, do not get fearful. Run the marathon. Get back into that marathon mentality. 1 foot at a time, one contraction at a time. Get back to that long game. Regroup. Get back on that next wave and give her. All right, the third tip is to resist nothing. And this is probably the best tip I can give you. Probably also one of the hardest to actually do, because the most common reaction when someone is in pain or experiencing like a really intense sensation is to fight it or avoid it or resist it or push it away. And that's usually a good idea, right? If something's causing you pain. But in labor, it's a little bit counterintuitive, because fighting and tensing and avoiding your contractions is going to be completely counterproductive. It's going to completely stand in the way of your smooth and efficient birth. So by tensing and fighting and resisting, you're actually reducing the effectiveness of those contractions. Instead, you need to resist nothing. You feel a contraction coming, boom, you go ragdoll loose. As loose and relaxed as you possibly can, every single muscle in your body, head to toe. Just like these flowers in this picture here, when the wind comes, right, they don't try to fight it and resist it and push against it. They just allow themselves to be moved with the wind. And they understand that that wind, has a purpose, right? It's probably spreading their seeds, but it's stronger than them. And they are not about to kind of try to fight it and resist it. And the exact same thing is true in labor. These contractions are immensely powerful. So you just need to relax and float with them and move with them and surrender to them. Remember, we're welcoming these contractions with love and gratitude. You got to relax and let that contraction do its work and get out of the way. Okay? And if you have a particularly bad contraction and you do tense up and you do fight it and you do really hate it, boom, right back to that marathon mentality. Regroup, have your water, take a few deep breaths, get ready for that next wave, and really extra special focus the next time on resisting nothing. This marathon mentality is so incredibly critical for the success of your natural birth. To get all the way to the end and not give up, you've got to be in that long game mentally. All right, I want to pop out a full screen for 1 sec to see if you guys are having trouble hearing me. My headphone sounds a little wonky in my ear, but I just want to make sure that I'm sounding okay on your end. Someone could just type in the question section and just say yes or no. Sound is good. Sound is good. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. I can hear great. Sound is good. You guys are the best. Thanks a lot for that. I can now continue without worrying that I'm all crackly. Okay, guys, assumption number 3 is that your body knows what it's doing and doesn't need to do any preparation beforehand. You don't have to actually do anything to prepare for your labor. And this has a bit of like 2 answers. Yes, of course, your body knows what it's doing. It knows better than I know. It knows better than anyone knows how to give birth. But know in that you do need to do some preparation. You do need to do some things to help align and streamline this process. And the reason for that is because your birth, unfortunately, is on the clock. And it's on the clock in a couple of different ways. First of all, you can't go more than 2 weeks overdue. Most doctors won't even let you go that far. I hear people getting induced 37, 38 weeks, right? It's insane. Okay, so your birth is on the clock in that way, but also once you do go into labor, most doctors aren't comfortable letting a natural labor go more than 24, say 32 hours at tops. And that's unfortunate because most natural, normal births take more time than that. And as long as mom is maybe not at the hospital and is up, moving around, drinking, eating, resting between contractions, as long as she's feeling okay, then it's normal for a labor to go beyond that 24 or 32 hour mark. So that is still normal, but unallowed usually by the hospital. That's at that point, they'll start kind of trying to push some interventions to speed things up. And so, of course, no, I'm not teaching your body anything here on the webinar tonight. But what we are trying to do is to help you streamline and focus the body to help your labor to fit into that medical time frame so that they aren't offering you interventions because your birth is just so smooth and efficient that you don't even need it. So that's why we're going to train your body for labor to have a smooth and efficient birth, because it breaks my heart to see women fall into this labor funnel, get stuck in this labor funnel because there are these physical roadblocks happening. Their cervix is not soft, so their cervix is rigid and it's not dilating. The uterus is not strong, so it's weak. It's producing ineffective contractions that are not helping the cervix to dilate. And also that the baby isn't properly positioned in the pelvis. So any one of these three reasons can cause an inefficient birth. And the good news is that these are all relatively preventable. So that's why I'm so happy that you guys are here. You're getting this information because this could make the difference for you. So step one is to prepare the cervix. And I'm just going to do a really quick anatomy and physiology recap so everyone knows what we're talking about with the cervix. So if you think about your uterus as a blown up balloon, then the cervix is going to be the little tied off part at the bottom. So the cervix is what usually separates the uterus from the vagina or the birth canal. So if you think about a lifesaver, when you pop a lifesaver in your mouth, that it starts out pretty thick, pretty hard, and it's got a small hole in the middle. Well, the same is true for your cervix. It starts out pretty thick, pretty hard, and it's got a small hole in the middle. Well, as you suck on that lifesaver, you'll notice that it simultaneously is becoming thinner and that hole in the middle is becoming wider. When it comes to your cervix, that thinning is called effacement, and the hole in the middle widening is called dilation. And the two are happening simultaneously as you're in labor. So if you're able to suck on that lifesaver all the way to the end without biting on it until it melts away completely on the tip of your tongue, that is when your cervix would be considered fully dilated and ready to push. So essentially, the work of labor is to efface and dilate that cervix until it disappears completely into the uterus so that the uterus is now directly open to the vagina. And then that's how baby is pushed down through, which is pretty freaking cool. So the first question to prepare the cervix is, how do we make sure that the cervix is really soft and malleable, or ripe, as they like to call it, so that it can make these dilation and effacement changes really smoothly and efficiently? Well, there's one way that you can do it, which is with dates, which is awesome. There's research showing that 5 dates a day is beneficial for cervical softening, which is fantastic to know. I love nothing more than DIY at home stuff that you can kind of take into your own hands and feel empowered by. The only kind of tricky thing with the dates is that there's a ton of sugar in dates. And if you're eating 5 dates a day, I wouldn't start this until about 38 weeks if I were you. But even then, 5 dates a day is adding a lot of sugar into your diet. So unless you're really cutting back on the sugar elsewhere in your diet, this would probably not be advisable. It could lead to an oversized baby. So there's a better option. This one definitely works, but a better option to kind of mitigate or manage that sugar issue is that in the Love Your Labor program, there's a cervical softening protocol. So that's where I give you supplements that will produce prostaglandin E2. This is something your body's already producing to soften the cervix. We're just nudging and encouraging and supporting that process along so that when you go into labor, your cervix is as ripe as it can possibly be so that it can dilate and efface as efficiently as it possibly can. That's what we want, right? Step 2 is to prepare the uterus. So another really quick anatomy and physiology recap. This is the uterus that your baby's growing inside of. The walls of the uterus are made of thick, smooth muscle that contract in a rhythmic fashion. So in the contraction, the uterus, the cervix, and the baby's position are all working in tandem together, to produce a smooth and efficient birth. So what I want to do here with this picture is kind of break down a contraction step by step so you can see why these three things are so important. So a contraction starts down at the bottom by the pink arrow by the cervix there. And you'll notice that it starts to roll up, 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 all the way around the front of your belly, all the way up to the top. So during a contraction, your belly is very, very hard. So the contraction of the muscle, it ripples up, 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 all the way around to the green arrow. So at the height of the contraction, the uterus muscle is piled up on the top by the green arrow and is pushing baby down. So as long as baby is in this position, which is called the OA or occiput anterior position, then the smallest, hardest part of the baby's head, which is the occiput, is going to be in contact with the cervix. That's what we want to be born first. That's what we want to be in contact with the cervix. So as long as that cervix is soft and malleable, like we were just talking about, and those contractions are really good and strong and regular, then that small, hard part of the baby's head is going to apply pressure to the cervix to help it to dilate, to move out of the way so the baby can be born smoothly and efficiently. So how do we prepare the uterus to make sure that these contractions are coming strong, regular, effective contractions that are going to bring you all the way to the end of your labor without needing to be augmented? Well, you can do that with red raspberry leaf tea. This is a uterine tonic. This herb, red raspberry leaf, is a uterine tonic. This is something that's been used forever by herbalists and midwives and naturopaths to help the uterus muscle to tone up before labor. Basically, just like a marathon, right? You know you would want to train your leg muscles and your lungs and all the muscles in your body to run a marathon because it's a a long, difficult endurance event that we want to prepare for. Your body is already preparing. Your body knows it's a long, physical, difficult endurance event because that's why there are Braxton Hicks, these practice contractions, right? Your body already knows that this is coming up. But what we want to do is just support and encourage and nudge that needle in the proper direction so you know when you're in labor that these contractions are the strongest they can possibly be because you've supported that process. So in terms of dosage, you can have 1 to 2 cups a day of this tea throughout your second and third trimester. It's totally safe. Contraindicated though in your first trimester because there is already an increase of risk of miscarriage in your first trimester. So we want to avoid it then, but in your second and third trimester, it's very safe. And then leading up to your labor, you can even up it to 3 cups a day to help to make sure that your uterus is really good and strong and toned and ready for the big day. And then we have step 3, which is to position the baby. Another anatomy and physiology recap. This is the female pelvis. It's wider on women than it is on men because we deliver babies through there and they do not. So as you can see, this pelvic opening here, this pelvic outlet right behind the pubic bone here, is pretty small, especially if you don't have childbearing hips like I do not have. My hips are very straight. And so that pelvic outlet is going to be even smaller on me than it would be on a woman with wider hips. But even still, even on a slender hipped woman, Mother Nature has devised a couple of ways to help to make sure that baby can fit out through that pelvic outlet. The first way is through a hormone called relaxin. So your body is producing this relaxin throughout your entire pregnancy. And the job of relaxin is to work on the cartilage and ligaments throughout your body to help it to relax, to just give a little and stretch and accommodate your growing belly and your growing baby. But really that relaxin is directed at your pelvis because your body knows that right before you go into labor, your pelvis needs to be its widest that it's ever been and the wiggliest that it's ever been. And that wiggly, wide opening will help to facilitate baby kind of scooching out through if there's a little bit of wiggle room and give in the pelvis structure. So that's the first way. The second way is that baby's skull bones are not fused together. So Mother Nature makes sure baby can get out through there because the pelvis is mobile and because baby's skull bones are mobile. So we've all seen babies born with a little bit of a cone head, and that's because their skull bones had to shift and mold on top of each other to fit out through their mother's pelvic outlet, which is pretty darn cool. So basically, we need to figure out what position is baby optimally positioned in the pelvis to have that really nice, smooth, and efficient exit. And we talked about this already, right? It's that OA position, the occiput anterior, head down, back facing out, face facing mom's back. If baby's flipped around and baby's back is facing your back, that would be called sunny side up, or OP presentation. That is called a malposition, or any other position, funny position that baby is in. Any malposition is going to increase your risk of having back labor. This is something I've had twice, and it is not something I would recommend ever to my worst enemy. Like, as much as possible, you need to try to prevent yourself from having back labor, because back labor increases your risk of intervention. There's essentially double the pain. There's the regular pain of contractions, and then there's all the pain in the back. So the increased amount of pain increases your risk of having pain meds, right? And then because baby's malpositioned in the pelvis, that increases your risk of needing assistance to get baby out through the pelvis. So that's why baby positioning is so incredibly important. So we need to think about your own position, your own ergonomics when we're going to position your baby. You want to be thinking about keeping your pelvis as open and mobile as possible. Okay, so your legs about hip width apart, if not a little bit wider. Your lower back to be curved in, not rounded out. And then that will make your sacrum pop out, not tuck under. And so in that position, wide legs, curved back, your pelvis is really nice and wide, and baby has lots of room to make any movements and get into that proper OA position. Once again, you want your hips to be in motion, not locked in one position for long periods of time, because again, that motion helps to give baby a little bit of momentum and help baby to scooch and make any movements down into the pelvis that they need to make in order to be in that OA position that we all want so badly. These pictures are all screenshots from the Love Your Labor program. There's an entire video on baby positioning. And this really just kind of skims the surface, but baby position is such an important aspect of how smooth and efficient your birth will go, that even if you just do these things, you're ahead of the game, right? Any work that you can do to get baby into this proper position is going to save you a lot of, I was going to say heartache, but maybe backache is what I meant to say. So you guys, what I want to get across to you with all of this knowledge that I've just taught you is that natural labor is totally possible. So you can just rip that I am off of your, mental, sign that was saying natural labor is impossible or hard or worrisome or, nerve wracking or whatever. I hope you're feeling a little bit more prepared. I hope you feel a little bit of a shift in fear. You're feeling a little bit more empowered and more confident, and you're feeling like this is actually a possible feat for you. Because we've talked about the roadblocks, right? We talked about fear being a big time roadblock, but now we've trained the mind and we've talked about what happens when you're fearful, how that impacts your smooth and efficient birth. And so now that we've trained the mind and we've given you some tools to manage contractions, that should minimize your fear. And also the labor funnel was a big roadblock for women, right? But now we've trained the body to have a smooth and efficient birth, so that if your cervix is ripe and your uterus is strong and your baby's properly positioned, there is no need for the labor funnel whatsoever, right? So we've kind of already climbed over those two labor roadblocks, and there's more for sure, but those are two definite big ones. So even if you're not feeling like labor is possible yet, even if you're still a little unsure, there's a lot of learning left to come on the call. So at this point, I'm going to introduce the Love Your Labor program. I'm going to show you the 4 steps to loving your labor. There's also a fast action webinar only webinar only discount that is available just to the live callers. So definitely watch out for that. I'm going to give you access to the labor room survival guide here in a little bit. And then at the very end, I'm going to show you the best kept secret in birth that I do not want to be a secret anymore. So I'm letting this cat out of the bag. So I want to start just before I kind of launch into the Love Your Labor intro, that if at any point from now on until the end of the webinar, what I'm discussing or what I have discussed so far is like super inspiring, making you feel like you can't wait one more second to join the Love Your Labor program, then you can visit the link at the bottom of the screen. Now, I want to be clear, you don't click the link because there's no hyperlink on the webinar, but if you go to like a new window, you type in loveyourlabor.com/webinar special, then you can get access to this amazing webinar only discount. And the reason I give you a webinar only discount is because I love nothing more than working with passionate, motivated, excited moms who are wanting to have a natural birth. So that's why I created this fast action discount just for you guys for being here. So at any point from now on, the card is open. If you want to go in and join me in the program, you are totally able to do so and make today amazing. So we're going to step back now. We're going to look at the big picture. We've talked about labor preparation, and that's really important. I think by now you can totally see like, oh, damn, that's really important to get all those ducks in a row beforehand. But now we're going to kind of look at the bigger picture and see the other aspects of loving your labor. So the first one, like we said, being mentally and physically prepared for your best labor experience. That's what we kind of talked about here tonight. The second step to loving your labor is having your partner specifically trained on how to support you. That's massive. The third step to loving your labor is understanding some general breastfeeding information before baby arrives so that you can jump right into breastfeeding without feeling stressed and anxious and worried about that. So that helps to actually improve your birth experience as well, your labor experience, because it all happens kind of at once as soon as baby's born. And then the fourth step is actually avoiding going overdue and feeling really ready because you have these at-home labor induction techniques and you're feeling super empowered, and like you have tools at your fingertips. So I just want to kind of do a side-by-side of a woman who is loving her labor and not loving her labor. And these are the areas that the Love Your Labor program kind of helps you to brush up on. So this is Katherine Heigl from the movie Knocked Up. And if you guys saw that movie, you know that that labor scene is like traumatizing. She, as you can tell from the picture, right? She's not having a good experience at all. And she is low on labor preparation. She hasn't, I think she might read a couple of books in the movie, but she hasn't done the thorough labor preparation that helps you to understand how to channel these sensations that you're feeling. She doesn't have a proper support team there with her, helping her. There's no one helping to manage this pain with her. And so she is just totally overwhelmed and freaking out. And that's why she's high on fear, right? She is fearful. She's terrified. She doesn't know what these sensations mean or when it's going to end or what to do about it. And that is causing her panic and anxiety. So all of these things combined basically are giving her a low level of empowerment. She's at the whim of the doctors and the anesthesiologists and the fear, basically. So that's not a very empowering place to be. However, if she had gone through the Love Your Labor program before her birth, she may have looked a little more like this woman. And this is how we want to look in labor, isn't it? This is like total birth goals right here. And this woman is so clear, even just from this picture. She's done preparation. She is either having a home birth or she's just laboring at home, but she's in her own clothes. She's not being monitored. She's up moving around. So she has done this preparation work beforehand. She's made some conscious birth choices. She has a support person right there with her, giving her exactly the attention and the affection and the support that she needs. And that is really, really critical. She's low on fear, right? She's mid-contraction here. She's got some sort of a coping mechanism underway, but it's so clear that she's not afraid. She's taking it as it comes. She's totally calm, totally confident. And that is what leads to this really high level of empowerment. That is what being empowered in your birth is: calm, confidence, and understanding what's happening and how to cope with it. And that's what the Love Your Labor program basically, in a nutshell, gives you, is that calm confidence to take it as it comes and understand what's happening and understand how to get through it naturally. So if you were to purchase the Love Your Labor program right now, the first thing you would get would be the first piece of groundwork. So there's 3 pieces of groundwork to kind of get everyone prepared for the actual content. So the first piece is the childbirth education video. This is a really short, just recap on all the, traditional prenatal class kind of stuff, all the anatomy, physiology, phases of labor, things like that. And so that may be a review for you if you've already taken a prenatal class. If not, that's what it's there for. The second piece of groundwork is the prenatal yoga and meditation piece. And this is such a popular piece of the program. I get so many emails saying, this is my favorite part, is doing this prenatal yoga and meditation every day. Basically, this piece of groundwork is designed to teach you how to breathe, because one of the most important things in labor is understanding how to breathe and following your breath through a full inhale and a full exhale. I do understand that you breathe all day, every day. I also breathe all day, every day, but you don't necessarily take the full proper inhale and exhale, and you're not focusing on your breath all day, for sure. But that's what yoga and meditation teach you how to do. Every movement with yoga comes with an inhalation or an exhalation. So you're really learning to find and follow that breath. And meditation the same way. The same way you tap into that meditative trance-like headspace is by finding and focusing on your breath. You absolutely need your breath in labor. And so that's why I created this piece of groundwork, to train you up for that beforehand. The third piece of groundwork is the pain training bundle. And this is where I literally remove the biggest fear that you have about your birth, which is the pain, right? If it wasn't for the pain, you probably wouldn't be here on the webinar right now. If it wasn't going to hurt, you wouldn't be afraid to take it on. And so we're going to just totally remove that fear, because, well, I'll explain to you. So the first piece, there's 2 pieces of the bundle. First piece is the pain training workshop video, where I teach you about the pain. I teach you the anatomy and physiology, why it's happening, how it's happening, and actually how it's helping your labor to progress, which is such an important piece. And that helps you so much when you're trying to cope with contractions, if you understand the value of the contractions and the pain. Second thing I teach you in this pain training workshop video is this mind over pain exercise. This exercise is something that I do right there live on the video. You can do it right along with me. And this exercise literally switches your experience from painful, like insanely painful, to completely painless. And it might sound impossible. It might sound too good to be true, but I can speak from experience. I used this little tip or this little exercise or technique through every single contraction I had, through a total of, 38 hours of labor. I used this tool every single contraction, and many, many women have echoed that same sentiment. It's very, very valuable. The second part of the pain training bundle is also very valuable. This is a natural pain relief resource guide. So this is where I give you the essential oils and the homeopathics that I use to have a smooth and efficient birth, or to support a smooth and efficient birth. Because 99% of the work of labor is coping with contractions, right? So you need to be able to decrease or eliminate that pain without having interventions. And so if you want to do that, if you want to avoid the relief of a medical epidural, then you need to go in equipped with other natural pain relief tools. And that's where this comes in. That's where the whole pain training bundle comes in. It's going to ensure that A, you're not afraid of the pain, and B, you have lots of tools to help take the edge off and manage it, so that you get to the end of your labor before you run out of options for pain relief. That's really my goal. So now the groundwork is all taken care of. Now we dive into the birth boot camp, which is the labor preparation module, largely what we've covered here tonight. This is where we prepare your mind and body for a smooth and efficient birth. So this module, on top of what we've already taught, does have the whole supplement protocol for the cervical softening. It also has a GBS prevention protocol that can help you to prevent getting the IV antibiotics if you're GBS positive. So it helps you to prevent the GBS positive status beforehand so that you can prevent the antibiotics, so that you can maintain your bioflora. If you were able to watch the webinar pre-training videos, then you know that bioflora is really critical to your baby's immune system, which is like critical to your baby's lifelong health. So preventing those antibiotics is really important. So that's why I have a GBS prevention protocol in there, as well as there's also a best case scenario birth plan, which is basically a templated birth plan that you and your partner can go through and kind of individualize and customize to make it something that you both love and that you both agree on and are clear about. So in module 1, we create the birth plan, and in module 2, which is the Daddy Doula or the partner training module, this is where I teach you how to actually achieve and execute that birth plan, because I train your partner to be your primary labor support person. And this is actually a really important key in loving your labor and having a smooth and efficient birth, because Mother Nature is brilliant and has designed it so that your partner, your intimate partner, is your absolute best labor support person, better than a doula, better than a midwife, better than a sister or a mother or a friend. And the reason for that is because of the hormone oxytocin. So we've chatted about oxytocin as your labor hormone, which it is, but it's also your love hormone and your bonding hormone and your cuddling hormone and your orgasm hormone. So your body is very used to producing oxytocin when your partner is nearby and close and being affectionate with you. So the more oxytocin you can produce in your labor, the stronger and more efficient your contractions are going to be. So it's a bit of a strategic thing having your partner support you, because not only are those contractions going to be way more effective, but also it's going to create this beautiful bonding experience for both of you, and you're going to both have a really wonderful positive labor experience. And so as a kind of supplement or a bonus to that second module, I've created the Labor Partner Handbook. And this is probably people's other favorite thing. I get so many compliments on the Labor Partner Handbook and thank you notes saying, oh my God, we used that thing so many times and we were so grateful to have it. And the reason I created that is because it needs to be more well known that labor is a two-person job. It's not just up to you to cope with the pain of contractions. And that should make you and your partner both feel better, because your partner needs to know that this is a team effort, and so needs to understand his role and exactly what to do. And so that's why I compiled and organized everything from the entire program that your partner will need to know to support you, and I put it into this handbook. So you print this off, you put it in your doula bag or your hospital bag. And that way there's nothing for your partner to have to memorize. And there's also nothing that your partner will be forgetting in your labor. And I created this bonus because I've seen one too many partners like with their back against the wall in the corner or in the other room because they just don't know what to do. They don't know where to, what to say or what to do or how to support you in a way that you'll appreciate and that will feel good and that will benefit you. And so that's why I created this, and it is absolutely outstanding. We used it for our second labor, for our VBAC many times. This is what it was that got us through all those obstacles. And so I can't speak highly enough about it. So that's the first bonus of the program. And then we get into module 3, which is the breastfeeding basics. And this is, I was originally not even going to include this module in the program because it has to do with breastfeeding, not birth, but they're so closely connected. Your birth experience impacts your breastfeeding experience, but also your breastfeeding experience is impacted by how much knowledge and education about breastfeeding you have before you actually do it. Because the reason for that is because it's not easy. It's actually really, really difficult. And nobody tells you that Everyone says breast is best, but no one tells you that this learning curve is insanely steep. And that also you latch your baby on for the first time, ideally within 1 hour after your birth. So not only have you just gone through labor and pushed out a baby, now you have to figure out breastfeeding within 1 hour. And so it's very, very beneficial for you to do this learning beforehand so you can cut that learning curve in half. Because what people don't really get is that baby needs to learn how to breastfeed and you need to learn how to breastfeed. There is a phase of learning and figuring it out and trial and error and everything. But the more you know going into it, the more successful you'll be in breastfeeding, and you'll save your nipples all that trial and error and poor latch and damage and all that good stuff. And that is also the inspiration for creating the second bonus, which is the milk supply guide. I have so many moms who are concerned that their milk hasn't come in or that their milk won't come in. And the tricky thing about it is that stress and worrying about your milk supply is actually going to decrease your milk supply. And so because of that nasty little cycle, I was like, okay, I'm just going to create this milk supply guide. And the beauty of it is it gives you all the information you need to boost your own lactation and make your own milk. And the way that you do that is I give you all of my favorite naturopathic galactagogues. So there's herbs, homeopathics, foods, and supplements in there that are going to boost your milk supply. And so if you feel like it's been a few days and your milk still hasn't come in, if you feel like, eventually once your baby's a little bit older, that your milk supply is kind of decreasing a bit, you have this milk supply guide to fall back on to boost your milk supply at any time, which is going to be a total lifesaver for you. So don't even worry about it. You've got all the tools you need for your milk. All right. And then we have module 4, which is the labor accelerator or the labor induction module. This is by far my favorite if I had to pick one, but it's like choosing your favorite child, really. They're all so good and so important. But this one is so fun because this is where we are actually ready to start inducing labor and start actually getting things going. Because this whole rest of the program, we've been just revving and warming that engine, if you use the car analogy, right? Which is that preparation, but that's not actually going to get us where we want to go. Now we need to change gears and hit the gas and go from labor preparation into labor induction or augmentation. And the reason I created this module is because I hated seeing women go overdue and feeling like they had no control and feeling like they were just up, it was random and it was up to the doctors over when they had their baby. So I wanted to give women a little bit more control, to give them a little bit of a say over when they go into labor, which really is the ultimate empowerment. And if this module can prevent you from going overdue, it reduces your risk, of getting Pitocin, because the longer you go overdue, the more likely you will get Pitocin. It reduces your risk of having a big baby, because the longer you go overdue, the bigger your baby's going to grow. And a bigger baby is harder to fit through the pelvis. And then that increases the risk of instrument or C-section delivery. So this module is really, really important. And the other beautiful thing on top of inducing your labor is that it actually teaches you how to boost your own labor as well. It gives you the tools to constantly be chipping away at your active labor. So if you're not in labor, you use these tools to go into early labor. If you're in early labor, you can use these tools to now put you into active labor. So you're always just inching towards it or boosting it once it starts. And that really gives you the ultimate ability to avoid Pitocin. My goal is to remove the need to get Pitocin at all, because Pitocin, as we know, is that first step into the labor funnel. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. And that's where this module really, really shines. So in terms of the investment, you guys, this is the whole entire program. So you can see on my website, the regular price is $5.99, but tonight only, for being here with me live, you get $400 off the regular price. So it's only $197. You get the 3 pieces of groundwork. You get all 4 pieces of the core content modules, as well as each module's bonus as well. So this is a really, really beautiful, wonderful deal that I'm so excited to share with you. And also super important to note that I've never actually shared with people before. And last week people were like, you should probably tell people that. Is that this 197 is in Canadian dollars because I'm in Ontario, Canada. So that's good for Canadians and Americans. And that's 197 taxes included. So there's no tax on top of that. It's 197 straight up, which is obviously that much more affordable than adding tax and American exchange and everything on top of it. And you can totally feel confident purchasing because there is a 15-day money back guarantee. So that's over halfway through the program. You have to try it out, to go through, check out the content. But knock on wood, I've never had to issue a refund because a woman was unhappy with the content. Like I said, my VBAC, my second birth there, proved this program to me like 1,000%. So that's why I am fully backing it with a 15-day money back, and I'm protecting your investment until you're feeling really confident and really sure. But like I said, I've never had to issue a refund, which is pretty awesome. And you might be wondering, how can I be sure this program will work for me, right? That's a very good question. Obviously, I cannot guarantee you that you're going to have an intervention-free birth. Nobody can guarantee that, though. I like to kind of say that there's a bit of a 90-10 rule. So you can do 90% of the work in terms of your preparation and your coping on the day of, but there is 10% that is not up to us, that is not within our control. And that extra 10% is like God or the universe or fate or Mother Nature or, you know, whatever it is that you believe in, that is that higher power or that higher knowing that is, you know, has its own plans. And so, but what I can guarantee for sure, if you do purchase this program, is that it will maximize your chances of giving birth naturally. More so than anything, there is nothing else like this out there. That's why I created it. And that it will minimize your chances of having interventions or unnecessary complications. This really is a world-class program. I created it because there was nothing else on the market teaching women the specific steps to empower themselves to give birth naturally. So that is what I'm here to do. It won't work 100% of the time, of course. That would be impossible, but it will absolutely maximize your chances of making it happen for you. And the benefits of doing it online versus like in an in-person class is that your content is delivered to you by email. So it's all digital. It's all right there in the email. And you can kind of file it away in a folder to watch now and then watch again later if you like. You can watch it from the comfort of your own home, which is amazing. You can watch it at your own pace on your own schedule. I know some people work or travel or have busy social lives or whatever the case may be. So you can totally watch it whenever it's convenient for you. You can pause it, rewind it, watch it, and rewatch it. And this is great for two reasons. First of all, you don't miss any important details, right? You actually get all the information from the program if you miss something. And that's definitely something you can't do with an in-person class. But the other benefit of this pausing and watching and rewatching is that it initiates conversation. So if you hear something and you want to kind of pause it and chat with your partner about it, then, you know, you're in the privacy of your own home, you're watching it at a convenient time, you're relaxed, you're bonding, you're opening up those lines of communication before labor, which is really just going to benefit you so much in the labor experience because you'll have that additional closeness. And at the bottom there is lifetime access. So if you buy this program, you never lose access to it. You'll always have access to the most recent version, so you can watch the videos and everything as many times as you want. The links literally do not expire. So you are set. You can watch it for future babies, which I've had women do, which is very cool. Yeah, you have lifetime access. It's yours, which is pretty awesome. And the other amazing thing is that it's not just the content. There is also an entire Facebook community just of Love Your Labor moms. And these people are all just like you. They're all like-minded. They all want to give birth naturally. They're all holistically minded, right? And the women in there have found so much support and coaching and cheerleading from one another, but also this Facebook group gives you direct access to me. I'm in there commenting and cheerleading and posting as well. So really throughout the program, if you have any questions, if you have concerns, if you have exciting news that you want to share, this is where you would do it, in the Facebook community. And there are definitely friendships evolving in there. It's really a wonderful thing to see. So guys, the bottom line is that this is what you want, this moment right here. This is where time stands still and you feel this wave of emotion. There is pride and love and relief and love and excitement and so much love. Like love is just exuding from every, it's insane. It's the highest, greatest ecstasy known to woman. It's the best natural high that a human will ever experience. These moments postpartum. And I want you to have this experience, right? I want you to get this moment at the end of your birth because it's such a magical memory. Every time this moment happens, I'm in the corner doing the ugly cry because it's magic. There's nothing like it. And I want this to be your experience. And so I want to ask you, what is that worth to you? What would you pay for that for this moment? What would you pay? What is that worth? What is the dollar amount? What would you pay for that accomplishment and that pride and that relief and that excitement and that joy? And for your partner to have, that joy and excitement and relief and love and respect and, excitement as well. And then, for your whole little family to be, in this love sandwich happening here. What is that worth? Right? What is the lifelong benefit to your baby, to your baby's immune system and your baby's health? What is that worth? If you could put a dollar amount on it, it's priceless, really. It's priceless. Because remember, like we said at the beginning of the webinar, this is something that's with you for the rest of your life. It impacts you on every level, physically and mentally, emotionally, spiritually, forever. This experience is so important to you as a woman. So what is that worth to you? It's a good question, right? So for those of you who are here on the call with me, you're still here for a reason, right? Obviously things are sounding good. This program was literally made for you. And so I want to reward the early birds, right? Those of you who are most motivated, most enthusiastic, most awesome and excited and really, really wanting to stand up and empower themselves and take action, that is who this amazing discount offer is for. So again, tonight only, $197. If you buy before midnight, you get $400 off the regular price of the program. There is the 3 pieces of groundwork. There's the 4 pieces of core content, the labor preparation, the partner training, the breastfeeding support, as well as the labor induction module. Each module comes with its own amazing bonus. And there's also the Facebook community, which is a ton of support so you don't feel like you're going at it alone. And then there's also the 15-day money-back guarantee. So you can buy with confidence, you can try it out, you can see if it's a good fit, and you can love your labor if it is a good fit. So I give you all of this for just $197 because I want this to be a no-brainer for you. I want it to be like, oh my God, of course I'm gonna, that is so worth $197, right? But other online programs online that are 4 weeks long are easily $1,000. But I wanted to make this really affordable for new families who are bringing a little baby into the world, who are saving up and, doing all these other expenses on the go. But really, if you think about the price of a naturopath, you think of the price of a doula, you think of a price of a lactation consultant, all of these things, you think of the price, if you're American, of staying in hospital for the extra days and getting the extra interventions, right? We don't have to worry about that in Canada, but in the States, you definitely do. And so $197 is a steal of a deal if it can prevent you from all of that, right? So that's why I want to just make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. So as promised, you guys, here's the link for the labor room survival guide. You'll have to actually type it into your browser, just like the Love Your Labor one. But I'm also going to email it out in an email shortly after the webinar ends. So if you miss it, do not worry. it's going to be emailed out to you. But thank you so much for being here with me live. This has been amazing. We have still the best kept secret in birth to go through. And then I'm going to pop out a full screen and answer your questions, and we will get to all of that. So with no further ado, the best kept secret in birth is, I have no drum roll, acupressure. Okay. Acupressure is not acupuncture. There are no needles. There's no breaking the skin. You do not need any additional credentials or, long training or anything to administer acupressure. That is what makes it the best kept secret in birth. It's an absolute must if you want to give birth naturally and love your labor. And so because of that, I have created the third bonus for the program, is an acupressure in pregnancy and natural labor bonus. So this is a video that my husband and I created showing you all the acupressure points, showing you exactly what they do. And all of the acupressure points are also found in the labor partner handbook, so your partner can use them on you in labor. But this is a massive, massive bonus that I am so incredibly excited about. And the reason is because acupressure blows my mind. It is pretty much all encompassing. So the things that these acupressure points can do for you, they'll prepare your cervix and your uterus for labor. So these are the ones that you're doing prenatally. They induce your labor. These are the ones that you're doing in the labor induction phase. They boost or augment your contractions if your labor slows or if you're in early labor for a long time. They reduce your pain and calm your mind in labor. This is probably the most common use for acupressure, but it's amazing at it. Amazing. I can't speak enough for how amazing acupressure is for reducing pain and calming the mind in labor, but it does all these other things as well. It dilates your cervix when you're in labor. It helps to increase the efficacy when you're pushing. So it helps to bring baby down and assist you in pushing baby out. And then it also stimulates breast milk production once baby is born. So obviously, having pressure points on your body that you can press to elicit all of these responses is going to drastically increase the likelihood of you having a natural birth and a positive postpartum experience. And that's why I've created this third bonus. That's why I've made it such a big part of the Love Your Labor program. Basically, acupressure points are woven into every single module of the program because they're just so supportive. And the other great things about them is that they're so easy. There's literally, I think it's like a 30-minute video that teaches you the locations, what they do, how to press on them. And that's literally all you need. It's enjoyable. The sensation that acupressure brings in labor is enjoyable. It feels like, the best way I can kind of describe it is like a really good foot rub when your feet are really sore. It's like that pain / pressure, and it kind of dances along that line. That's exactly the sensation that acupressure gives you in labor. It's also empowering to have these pressure points that you can push on that will give you some level of control, some feeling of control. If you notice that your contractions are slowing down, it's nice to say to your partner, like, hey, go and get the labor partner handbook and we'll look at the points that we can use to augment the labor so that they don't offer to give us Pitocin, right? It's nice, it's empowering to have that in your back pocket and give you some control when you're in the labor room. It's also very effective. It's empowering because it's effective. This stuff works. This is the only thing I do when I go to a birth as a doula. It's the only thing I do. That's all I do is acupressure because it works insanely well. I've seen it do insane, magical, wonderful things at a birth. I cannot say enough about it. It's the best kept secret in birth. And the reason it's so effective, you guys, is because it's energetic. This is the be all and end all of labor interventions because nothing else is energetic. Homeopathy is energetic. But the beautiful thing about acupressure is that it's physical and energetic. So it works on both levels. But the energetic aspect taps into that deeper energy level, that deeper knowing of the body. And it creates shifts on the physical level, yes, but also on the energetic level. And that's where it really becomes a secret weapon. That's where it really creates outcomes that you would not expect. I've seen a baby go from breech in labor to completely flipping around head down because of acupressure. Actually, that has happened twice to me. right? So just think of all the times that if all the women who buy this program use it, all the positive outcomes that they are seeing. And that's just one example. Like, there are so many, and it's because it's energetic. It's speaking to the body in its own language. And it's really, really, really powerful stuff. So you really want to empower yourself by getting acupressure education, whether with me or with someone else. But it's molded and woven into every other aspect of this program. So it's already very accessible for you. So you guys, it's time to say heck yes and enroll yourself in the Love Your Labor program today. Just like Ina May said, like, this is your birth. This is such an important day for you. I really cannot stress that enough. It's one of the most important days of your life and one of the most important days of your baby's life as well. It's like buying a house or buying or a wedding or something, but even more important than that, like I said, this is a day you are never going to forget. This is a day that when you think of it or tell your birth story, you are going to have a visceral reaction every time you think about it. And it has the potential to affect you for the rest of your life. I have friends whose births did not go according to plan. And 5 years later, they're proud of themselves that they can talk about it without crying. Like, the regret and the physical wounds that birth has a potential, or the emotional wounds that birth has the potential to elicit, you really want to stack the deck in your favor and make sure you help this day go your way. I'm sure you know by now, seeing the offer and whatnot, that this is a pretty sweet deal. Everything you get for $197. But if even still that, like, oh, I don't know, I wasn't going to spend this money right now. And do I really need this? Is this really for me? If all of that is kind of bubbling up in your chest, that is your head talking, right? That's making you doubt yourself. It's making you fear. It's making you keep yourself small. But remember, we're not going to listen to that conversation anymore. We can kind of tease out which one's the head and which one's the heart. We're not going to listen to that head conversation. The first lesson of loving your labor, the first lesson I teach in the program, the first lesson I teach in this webinar is getting out of your head and getting into your heart. So if you believe in your heart that the Love Your Labor program is for you, then I would definitely defer to that. Because I say this with total love. I mean, you know by now that I absolutely want the best possible birth for you. So if you decide not to join me in the program, what are you going to do instead? You need to have an answer for this. How are you going to solve this problem? How are you going to avoid the labor funnel when 80% of women are falling into it? Invest in yourself, you guys. This program takes you from where you are now and it morphs you into one of those 20%, an empowered woman who knows exactly what she's doing, who is calm and confident and in control of her labor. That is what you want, and I know how to get you there. That magic moment at the end of your birth that will make your birth experience so explosively positive. I know how to get you there. And so that's why I encourage you to follow me in this proven system to love your labor this time around and really jump at this opportunity to make it the best it can possibly be. Because we know, right? Just like with a marathon, you're not going to sign up for a marathon and go home and cross your fingers and hope and pray that it's going to work out in your favor. A marathon is just too much. Running for 4 hours is not something most people can do on a whim. They need to train, they need to prepare, they need to educate. So I want the exact same thing to be happening with you right now. I want you to be learning and discovering and gaining confidence and making conscious birth choices leading up to your labor. I want you to be actively seeking and pursuing your natural birth, not passive, not just leaving it in the hands of your caregiver, but active, not hoping and praying, but chomping at the bit. And the secret is in the Love Your Labor program. It's completely unique, totally fresh information. You're not going to find this stuff anywhere else. And now that you know this system is out there and it's not just random and up to chance how your birth goes, now you have a choice to make, right? I've extended you this invitation, but that at this point, that's all I can do. So now it's up to you to decide if you want to show up in a big way and do this work and absolutely love your labor. So friends, that's all I've got for you tonight. I see a question. Type your questions if you haven't yet, and I'm going to start addressing them here now. Okay, sound is good. Sound is good. Okay, Blake, I want this so bad, but I literally can't afford this. I barely have enough to pay my bills. I'm only 22. Is there any way I can be added to the Facebook page or something? I want all this info so bad. Blake, send me an email. I can't add you to the Facebook group if you haven't joined, only because everyone else in the Facebook group has joined. But definitely send me an email. If you don't know, just hit reply to any of the emails that I have sent you. And I have worked out a low income thing before, once or twice. So if this is something that, like, yes, you absolutely are dying for, then send me an email and we'll chat, okay? Shauna says, when laboring at home, at what point should you go to the hospital? Good question, Shauna. The most common answer to that question is 511 or 411. So when your contractions are about 4 minutes apart, lasting 1 minute each, and it's been doing that for about an hour. So that's like a typical pattern that you would want to see. That means that your labor has regulated at that point. So before your labor regulates, there's no point in going to the hospital because they're just going to either send you home or put you on Pitocin. So wait until your labor is regular before you go into the hospital. That's really your best bet for avoiding that labor funnel. I noticed that there was an eating plan in the program. Yes, there is. I didn't get a chance to talk about that, but I do show it here. Yes, this is the meal plan. The exercise plan is the yoga and meditation. So yeah, there is, that's really the main form of exercise that I use, only because it's gentle and strengthening and has all the benefits of positioning the baby and finding the breath and all of that good stuff. So it's really the most bang for your buck in terms of exercise. But it's a very popular piece of the program, and women email me saying, like, I literally did that yoga every single day. So yeah, it's good stuff. So Delane, I hope I'm saying that name properly. Delane says, I've had 2 babies. I'm wondering if it's worth it. I guess, Delane, that depends on, you're welcome, Selena. Delane, I guess that depends on you. Like, I guess it depends on how your previous birth experiences went, how you're feeling about this one. You know, if you had wonderful positive birth experiences before, then you're probably okay. But if you had traumatic birth experiences or C-sections, or, you know, you weren't happy with the outcome, or, you know, whatever the case may be, then I would definitely defer. I would definitely recommend this program for sure. So it just kind of depends on how the other 2 have gone. Any other questions, guys? Selena says, have you heard or researched the Bloom Life device that you can rent? I'm curious to know your opinions on that. I don't know what that is, but I think I've heard of a similar thing. Is this like the balloon that you put into your vagina and you blow it up to help stretch your perineum to prevent tearing? Maria says, thank you. Looking forward to the program. Booyah, Maria. Can't wait, man. I'll see you over in the Facebook group. Sorry, Selena, was that? Oh, it sticks to your belly and counts or tracks your contractions. Oh, yeah, we're totally thinking of different things. I have not heard or researched the Bloom Life device. No. But is this something that you would use at home? Supposed to help you from going in too early. Okay, so this is something that you do at home. You know, I don't think it's necessary. I haven't heard of it or researched it, but just kind of from what you're telling me, you know when you're having a contraction before you go into the hospital. And in terms of, let me see, what else does it do? Counts and tracks your contractions. Yeah, I don't think that that's really necessary. You're very aware when you're having a contraction. And as long as you have like a labor support person who's there to kind of manage and monitor tracking the contractions, you don't necessarily need an external device to help you do that. So I would save your money if I were you and buy the program, or do something else, buy something else for the baby, or whatever. But it doesn't sound completely necessary to me. As a general rule, the kind of external monitoring things tend to, in hospital anyways, tend to increase the risk of intervention, because there are normal, like once you get into the hospital and they try to do the external fetal monitoring, which is attached to you continuously, a continuous fetal monitoring, then that, there are normal decels in baby's heart rate and accelerations. That's normal. You actually want to see that. That's a sign of health in your baby. But they've actually proven that this continuous fetal monitoring has actually increased the risk of interventions, because they're seeing decelerations in the heart rate and they're jumping right to C-sections or whatever. When, if you're monitoring with a midwife or a home birth, they would monitor the heart rate every 15 minutes. And so that gives you kind of an overall understanding of how the baby's doing versus monitoring every single time the baby's heart beats. And so that's kind of just something to think about too, that being monitored in general is kind of a tricky thing, in that, think of the cave woman, or think about Ina May Gaskin on the farm. They don't have all these fancy contraptions and they make out just fine, if not better. Maria says, Facebook group request pending. Amazing. I will get to that as soon as I'm done the webinar. Can't wait to see you in there. Any other questions, you guys? This has been a really great group. Let's see how many we got. Oh yeah, we still got lots of people here. You guys are awesome. Any other questions about the group, or sorry, about the program, or about anything I said in the webinar tonight? If you have specific questions about. If you have questions, guys, and I close the webinar down before you get a chance to hit send, just hit reply to any of the emails that I've sent you and I can get back to you as soon as possible, okay? I don't see any more questions coming in. Thank you, guys. Maria says, wonderful webinar. Thank you so much. Maria, you are a delight. You guys are all a delight. You are very welcome. I really hope it has helped. And I really hope to see some of you guys over in the Love Your Labor program. Selena says we have until midnight for the special price. Selena, yes, that is a general rule of thumb, but if I'm being honest, I'm giving you like a sidebar whisper here. I really don't close it down until tomorrow morning when I wake up at 5. So if you feel the need to purchase at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., you can still do that. But yeah, I close down the early bird price when I wake up in the morning, because I basically go to bed after the webinar. So yeah, you have a few more hours than just midnight if you want them. Selena says, haha, thanks. Just want to consult the hubs when he gets home. Yes, totally. And I fully support that. I've even had people the next day be like, my husband didn't get home until last night and we didn't talk about it till this morning. Can we still do it? Yes, absolutely. Like, I get it. You're here live. You want to get the deal. And so I want to help you to get the deal. I would never say no. So thank you. You're welcome, Selena. Delane says, very great info for sure. Thinking about it for sure. There are bits and pieces I really want. Yeah, I get that. And people will ask me like, can you just sell me the induction module? Or can you just sell me the partner module? And unfortunately, it doesn't work. Like, they all kind of reference and relate to each other, and they all, you need to do the preparation before you do the induction, and it's all kind of part and parcel. So that's why I try to make the price as low as possible, so that it's, you get it all for kind of one low price. You guys have been delightful. I'm going to let you go. I don't see any more questions. Thank you so much. And like I said, I hope to see some of you over in the Facebook group, or send me emails if you have any questions. And have a wonderful rest of the evening, guys. I will talk to you soon.